Do you ever feel like something isn't right? Everything around you seems to be going normal, yet something seems off. In 1752, an entire empire would have such a feeling.
Oh, and don't even ask about 1752. In Russia, 1752 looked pretty normal, but check out what the British Empire was up to that year. Nothing really out of the ordinary, except Ember. The second was followed by the 14th. Were 11 days just deleted? Where'd they go?
This clip is from a video by Vsauce, which has nothing to do with the English calendar. Instead, Michael simply mentions the event in 1752, and then goes on about a completely different topic relating to our movement in space. I enjoyed the video, and will leave a link in the description for anyone who wants to check it out. However, after watching the video, I wanted to know, why did the English calendar skip a chunk of September? The story begins with the creation of the Gregorian calendar. Prior to the 16th century, most countries in Europe were still using the Julian calendar, named after Julius Caesar of Rome. In the Julian calendar, 1 year was equivalent to 365 days and 6 hours. To account for the additional 6 hours, 1 additional day was to be added every 4 years. Unfortunately, the rotation of the Earth and the planet's orbit around the Sun don't perfectly match up. In reality, the Julian calendar was off by roughly 11 minutes every year. This may sound like a small problem, but by the time the 16th century rolls around, 11 minutes a year for hundreds of years has put the calendar off by a number of days. If this were to continue, the times of year would not represent what they actually were. Winter would turn into summer, and vice versa. Thus, Pope Gregory XIII decided to change the calendar. In 1582, he declared that those under the dominion of the Church will set their calendars back by 10 days. In order to prevent having to repeat the shift, he also changed the policy on leap years. Now, every 4th year was to have an additional day, but every 100th year was not, but every 400th year was to bring the additional day back. This still doesn't line up perfectly, but is so close in matching the Earth's orbit that it will not become a problem again for hundreds of thousands of years. However, Great Britain was no longer connected to the Catholic Church thanks to Henry VIII, roughly half a century prior. This lack of cooperation made any transactions between Britain and a country like France very confusing. It would take a bit less than 200 years for the Brits to accept a change with the Calendar Act of 1750. Since a decent amount of time had passed since the creation of the Gregorian calendar, the British shift was 11 days rather than 10. Even though the British change was notable, seeing as its empire stretched across the world at the time, it's hardly the only interesting case. Russia kept the Julian calendar all the way up until Bolshevik rule, which is why the February Revolution took place in March. Turkey was one of the last countries to accept the new calendar and stuck to the Julian calendar all the way up until 1927. Now that nearly all countries are on the Gregorian calendar, a shift in days won't be necessary for a long time. By the time we reach the year 5000, we will only be off by 1 day.